Hi, and welcome to the third episode of the Intrapreneur Stories. I'm here today, digitally, together with Christopher Waldner. Christopher Waldner is, how can we say it? There are maybe three different ways of explaining what you do. You're a venture builder, maybe also an entrepreneur in residence, or a freelance intrapreneur. I don't know, which one is it?
Yeah, always a tough one. So typical first question, hey, and what are you doing? People expect a short answer, and I was like, damn, not that question.
Think innovation, think digital, think transformation. That's me.
yeah. So basically, what I tend to say is that I just love to build stuff from scratch. I love the blank sheet of paper when nothing is working in the beginning. That's where I feel very comfortable, and I love to drive projects in that setting, and this made me an entrepreneur and made me build startups that are today, I would consider as systems that are working without me, and that made me also run corporate innovation projects that are today systems that run without me, or of course that made me also fail a lot and fail to build systems that work without me.
Yeah. But before coming to what you're doing right now, like what has been your career path so far, academically speaking, maybe professionally speaking?
Academically speaking, not a lot, I would say. Well, I did my bachelor in economics and IT, and I did it while building startups. I think then basically my academic career was over, because I had the feeling that I won't learn anything more that I meet in a digital online world, where I feel comfortable in. From another academic perspective, what I did a lot in the last years is learned about innovation methods. I feel pretty comfortable with every deep dive in every method around there, be it business model canvas or lean startup or design thinking, or agile, especially Scrum, because I think it is a language to help to explain people what I mean when I say working on thinking entrepreneurial. And sometimes I need the artifacts. On the other perspective, my career was always very doing focused. So I built my first startup after I finished school, without basically knowing what I was doing and without knowing a name for that. There was entrepreneurship or something like that. Then I learned during my studies that there is a word for people like me, and that there are actually more people like me. So I grew up on the countryside. I was the only one under 40 running a company there.
Wow, that's impressive.
that was really strange. So it was non-digital. And it felt like a relief for me when I heard, oh, entrepreneurship is around there, and this was then a virus that I never found a healing for, basically. So,
but already at that age, you were interested or were looking for more vocabulary within the innovation language, and then especially to
I always wanted to explain people what I was doing. Wanted to explain my parents what I was doing. So, and there was no during then I was studying, and while studying, I never quit of trying to just search for areas to innovate in. That's how I would call it today. And doing so, I managed to be co-founder or build a couple of startups that actually worked out. So one of which is today the biggest job platform for veterinarians in Germany and Austria. Meanwhile, also software as a service provider and headhunting provider. Another one is the biggest platform to adopt pets from animal shelters.
A wide range of variety, it sounds like.
It was just the journey to create this that was fascinating for me. And another one was a system to sell pet health insurances online. And this was basically the first time I was doing something, I would say, like turned from the pure artist state to a state where I also wanted to earn money. So insurances was a move from pet to somewhere where I can earn money, and this was finally acquired by Allianz, and I would say pretty early stage. Not the normal Series C acquisition stage, more like instead of in Series A, we got acquired. It was an experiment for all parties. I wasn't aware that I was an experiment.
Who were all the different parties involved in that story?
I learned later on that there was a big project from a major consultancy regarding, of course, digitalization, regarding direct, and regarding pet health insurances as a playground for this, or as a trying field for this. And as I also learned later on, now working with corporates, one of the first instincts of a corporate is, let's do M&A, let's buy them, let's buy somebody, let's buy revenue, let's buy portfolio, let's buy people. So
the proven stars, uprising stars. Let's just buy them all.
and I think this is how this turned out, because there was just nobody. And we already had a working relation with Allianz, and I think it felt natural for them to acquire somebody, felt natural for us to be finally working with a bigger partner. And I'm still convinced that, I was convinced back then, and I am still convinced that on paper, Allianz would have been the perfect partner also to scale this all over Europe. But it never worked out. And this, for me, this was so, meanwhile, the platform is I think offline, while they are still in, basically what I hear in a lot of strategy papers, they mentioned the platform and the asset. So it's still there, like a corporate there, but in the real world, it's not there anymore.
Perhaps the idea is still there, and then maybe looking how to exploit it in a more sustainable, more sustainable way.
Maybe. So what we built was just a working funnel. And that was very hard work, and that was just a funnel. From a lean startup perspective, we did the hardest work. I think it was just ready to scale, ready to throw more money into it. It was just from a corporate innovation perspective, it was not well handled. But nobody was aware of that. There are no blueprints for stuff like that. For me, I had two possibilities then. Either go back to entrepreneurship and build something new again, which I tried to do. I built an app for business meetings, a Tinder for business meetings, for example, following more and more process rules, but I haven't had the power in that time anymore. Or being so frustrated of corporates, I decided to basically dedicate the next 10 years to intrapreneurship. And I found that also already in my studies, like 7 years before, I reserved the domain intrapreneuring, so it was like for me the right moment to have a closer look at that and learn the processes behind intrapreneurship and how corporates can behave and act like in a world like this.
Because I can imagine that indeed the world of entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship are on the one hand very similar, but also extremely different. And let's start from the beginning. As an entrepreneur, you come up with an idea, you put yourself together with some mastermind partners, some friends of yours who are bright, ambitious as well, who come up with an idea. Translating that to an intrapreneur setting, how do you get started there for you?
So first, this was basically interesting, because that was one of the first things that I saw running then together with an intrapreneurship project at Munich Re, which was a perfect setting, by the way. So an entrepreneur and me as an external, and the internal, and both doing what they can do best. The first thing I learned is that the entrepreneurship is not just, or intrapreneurship is not just entrepreneurship within organizations. One major difference is that intrapreneurship, what I would say is like, think and act like an entrepreneur. You can do within organizations without necessarily having to build companies or corporates. An entrepreneur in the end always needs to build a corporate, because he needs to earn money somewhere. He needs to create a system that works without him. This is what I think is the major driver for entrepreneurs: create something that works without you, that is bigger than you. Within a corporate, that is easier on the paper, because there are processes, there are programs, there are resources. So, to be honest, while talking, I forgot your major question, but I think it was
No, the question was still comparing the entrepreneurship with intrapreneurship, and then especially going from the beginning phase, because of course you have an end-to-end process there. So even getting an idea launched or introducing yourself, I can imagine you're a bright, ambitious man. You knock at a corporate door. Who answers the door in your opinion? Is that a project manager? Is that immediately the CEO of the company? Who do you go to at that point?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. But my hope always was that I can work as a one-person venture builder. But I learned over the last years that doesn't work. Not because it doesn't work from a one-person perspective. I think this could work, and just finding the right sparring partner on the corporate side. I think that the doors you knock at then are the program managers, the innovation managers that are responsible for the lab, the accelerator, the incubator, the launch, you name it. And they created these sweet, poisonous places where you will maybe run some workshops, do a couple of weeks do a project, launch a prototype, whatever you feel like doing to iterate towards your goal in the end. But there comes this one day where you have to step out of the lab, and then it is harder than before. So I see basically I think it's way easier in a corporate, in a developed environment to start something, and this is sweet poison because they will kill it in the end. In the moment you ask for serious money, politics hit, and nobody's willing to risk a lot of money.
It kind of feels like you need to have that, let's say, first that hands-on experience as an entrepreneur, like you had in the past, before actually being able to proper functionally within, let's say, an innovation program within a corporation. Like you already know the steps, but this time it's going to be a bit more structured. You're going to have more resources, and then in the end, you already know what it's going to be like as soon as you hit the market or even validate your proposition.
Yeah. I think that this it's easier. I think it's a craft that you can learn and that you have to learn. And like cooking, you learn cooking through cooking and then reflecting on the process and learning theory. And entrepreneurship is the same. And there are too many people in the corporate world who are innovating based on theory only. And there are too many people in the entrepreneurial world who don't care about theory. And I was the same. I was like, oh no, another coach with the business model canvas and stuff like that. But they are helpful. And today I would only build a company again with a coach or a mentor or however you name it, who is utilizing the methods. So that may be another major difference. Corporate too theoretical, whereas entrepreneurs not theoretical enough. A lot of them. Some are. If you look at Y Combinator or 500 startups or something, I think that they know pretty well what they are doing.
Yeah. They have those experienced venture builders pairing up with potential people who have a lot of market experience to leverage together with the entrepreneurship there.
Yeah. And maybe
it's an interesting comparison, though, the cooking. I like it a lot. You have to be able to at least have broken an egg and try to boil it before actually just reading about it.
You have to be able to just sit down, go to instapage.com and launch a proper landing page and a Google AdWords campaign.
That makes sense. But so since you're as a freelance entrepreneur or venture builder, since you enter a corporate scene, at that point, you're probably not going to start working alone, or they're just going to keep you outside the company walls and let them work then, or maybe let you work on your own, come up with something, and then they just buy it from you. So I guess at some point, you're going to have to work with intrapreneurs.
Yeah.
Are these intrapreneurs, how are these assigned to you? How do you get to meet these people?
What happens is that you learn that you meet the program managers, and you learn that most of the programs, and it's not the fault of anyone, it's just that the world is learning at the moment, or the economy is learning, most of the programs are not well designed. So I think they care too much about facility and office space and all of that, and too less about the process itself and the boundaries of the process, and and what comes before the lab and what is after the lab. So all of that. And seeing all of this, I ended up in different roles in the last years, which were basically running projects on my own behalf, so being responsible for the outcomes. The other one is sparring partner for somebody who is responsible for the outcomes. I wouldn't call it only a coach, more a mentor. So I was trying to think also with him, not only ask him questions. Or a same thing here, or sparrings partner, or even being responsible for running programs. For example, at Trump, or at the moment at Osram, designing and then running programs. And in these different roles, I have different partners I work with. That can be when I design the program, it is somebody who is in the C-level or head of innovation or is responsible for strategy and has enough budget, of course, to do something like that. Whereas when we get more hands-on and make our hands dirty with the real projects, the people I meet differ a lot, but all of them, I would say, most of them are in their mid-40s, are male, don't know why, are in their mid-40s, always wanted to be entrepreneurs, but never did it somehow, but thought of this, have children at home, and are both pretty happy that they can follow their project and convinced that they do something good for the corporate and the society. It can be product managers, can be internal consultants, can be salespersons, can be everybody.
I can imagine. It all depends on what solution you're trying to provide at a certain point. But in your opinion, do you see some valuable assets really popping out there, saying that, okay, I've worked with these intrapreneurs and they got me, or that collaboration was going so well because of these elements, and these people were maybe open-minded? I don't know. What are the key elements in your opinion to that extent?
So I'm driven by creating deliverables, and for that I need budget. And what I don't do anymore is when people ask me to, the first thing we need to do is creating slides, then I turn away. This I think is a factor for being successful is having somebody who has budget. It doesn't need to be a lot, but we need to start those submarine projects. 10,000 can be well enough to get something going. And another very important learning is a success factor, maybe, is having young people on the team who are hungry. So somebody who does an internship, who's at his studies or something, who's just happy to go out with me to the customer or to launch those campaigns, because this takes time. It takes so much time to do all of this stuff, and the sponsors, the people with budgets, don't have that time. And to be honest, I think I'm just too expensive to do all of this. So it makes a lot of sense to have juniors there who are willing to learn, and basically it's very often it's the juniors who go to the sharp end and get their hands dirty and make the tough learnings.
We'll do the groundwork, of course, yeah.
But I guess to a certain extent, looking both at doing groundwork or even theoretical work for these ventures, at some point you must have like a roadmap in front of you. You mentioned you work towards deliverables. How does that translate, or how does that match with the vision of the corporations? Are they agreeing with your approach? How does this come in for them?
I think it's always it's very tough to answer, because every corporate is so different, and all the persons I work with are so different, and not only that they're different in the moment I get to know them, I managed to continue to work with all of the people that I met so far. And the environments are changing all the time. So it's really like breathing with the organization all the time, without losing track. But if you ask me for a roadmap, from a project perspective, I think it's correct how to validate projects. First thing is we set the scope using whatever canvas. Why do we do this? Where do we want to be? How will this whole system interact? Then we figure out the most critical assumptions. Mostly it's customers. People don't want it. But in corporate setting, it's also corporate doesn't want it. And then maybe we have technological feasibility. Then we go deeper into those assumptions. We develop experiments. We run those experiments. We get from customer problem to problem solution fit. And to be honest, that is tough already. People underestimate it totally. I think this takes 3 months full time to get there.
Yeah.
And especially in B2B, maybe even more. And then I hope to get them into I go then into incubation stage, because I think this is the time where I say, all right, next step is product market fit. That's the tough one, because it means that you were able to build a product that is accepted at your first stage market, at your early adopter market.
It's the going from an alpha to a beta version, actually.
Yeah, if you at all you have I think you don't even have an alpha when you do problem solution fit. All you have is an offer that people liked, and then now you have to create a product, and you will learn that you know nothing. And this can take 6 months to 3 years, I would say, until you finally hit this glamorous product market fit stage. And as a matter of fact, you only reach that every now and then. I would say I reached it 5 times in my life so far.
That's already quite a high number. Out of how many would you say that was?
50 that I would say that I really cared about emotionally. Maybe 200 that I saw or did the sparring every now and then or something.
And then looking at the typical ideas, and then I'm talking about the corporate setting. So you working as a freelance intrapreneur, how many, or what was the ratio in that extent? Looking at radical new innovations versus perhaps incremental innovation. So looking at the projects, because a lot of people have the tendency to say, okay, I'm working on radical innovations, but in the end, it's just an extension of the product or service line that is at that point. So maybe a better question would be, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, that is again a very interesting perspective, because this gets us from the art of rolling out a project to designing a program and more importantly, making the program better and better within the I have to say it, ecosystem of the organization. And of course, a part of that is having a portfolio and knowing that you will, even as a program, that is not enough to have one program. You may need 5 or 10, depending on how large you are, and that you would have to make clear whether you say, all right, we are here to use new technology to just learn about this technology. Virtual reality, I think, was there until 1 year or 1.5 years ago. Now we see the first real cases with it, but before that, it was just tough to say where to use it. You could create use cases, you can use the methodology, but it was technologically driven. And the other one, I would say, is business model driven. Business model driven, again, you can differ into things, your existing one or a new one. And as you know, I like to be very geeky about this. So what I always take is the business model canvas then and say, all right, if we have an adaptation in one of the fields like channel, maybe then this is incremental. It still is innovation, because I feel like we still need to work experimentally. We still need to go faster to concepts. We need to stay customer centric with design thinking, whatever. So we still need those methods, but it's incremental. Or we take the canvas and say, all right, we have a new customer here. We have a new value proposition here. We might even have a new revenue channel. That is new product, new market. And again, I think you need a different program for that, because you will have different people in it. You will have different boundaries. You will have different after that scenarios, all of that. So in the end, I end up, to make a long story short, I end up differing 3 major things. One is the pure technology lab.
Yeah.
And the other one is a business model focused lab with incremental versus radical. And I don't use the term disruptive.
Okay, all right. I also had one question from our previous intrapreneur, Pieter de Wulf from Bringer, Parsify at this point, and who is currently working for Bubble Post, so a very strong operations manager, director within the logistical services in Belgium, postal services, who was actually wondering about the incentivation program, him being one of the key intrapreneurs or first intrapreneurs at bpost. He explained to me that at that point he was given the choice, either you stick within your current position, which I believe was marketing, or you step into this new adventure for which you don't know the outcome, meaning that if it fails, we would still have a position for you, but it won't be your old position. That is what he told me. But what is actually a good incentivation model that a corporate could apprehend or apply towards his employees and to really stimulate the intrapreneurship? Have you encountered something like that internally in a corporation where you said, wow, these guys, they figured it out?
I think nobody has figured it out at the moment. At least I don't know anybody. If you talk to them publicly, of course everyone has figured it out, but nobody has, and nobody will ever, because the world is changing faster than we can learn. So all we can do is to hope to adapt fast. This is, by the way, also why I struggle to say what I do. I don't know. So I think the first thing is, I don't think that incentives are as important as people always think. If you look at the most successful and the most impressive innovators I worked with, they neither had a lab nor did they have any incentives to do this. They just wanted it and they pushed through it. And I think this is the people that you're searching for. And then with the right incentives and the right programs, you can make them even better, and you might find even more of them. But first of all, I think the intrapreneur will fight his way through it, even without incentives and without a program. Saying that, what is important is appreciation. That sounds very easy, but from what it's just my anecdotal evidence that most intrapreneurs I know care a lot about what people think, and care a lot about that they appreciate them, not by saying you are the best person on earth, but by giving them respect and time. So that means, and see, when the CEO finds time to talk with an entrepreneur, ask him questions about how does your daily life look? How did you learn that? How was this experiment? What do you think for the future of our corporate? All of that, I think, if you show entrepreneurs that you really care about what they create and what they are doing, this is way more important than 10% of revenue share in 5 years or incentives like that. Because if the entrepreneur, this is what I said before, the purely financial driven entrepreneurs will not work within corporates and will never work with corporates. If I would be purely financial driven, what I would do is affiliate marketing. So people who are entrepreneurs, are purely financial driven, will not work within corporates. We need the people that are more, I would say, purpose driven or process driven, that just like me love to build stuff, or are driven by having this idea of an impact. So an appreciation for both is very, very important. Second thing is give them the time to learn as long as they need it. As I said before, most projects don't need acceleration, they need deceleration, and we need time for that, and we need an incubation time until this moment, this holy product market fit moment, and again then ruthless scaling. And not, as I always hear people then, oh yeah, and I'm willing to invest, and here's one business developer, and you can also use 50% of this software development. I'm talking about 50 software developers and 50 business development managers.
Dedication to the cause.
And ruthless. When we have product market fit, there is no excuse. The only thing is we don't have enough of it. I think, and this is where we struggle at the moment in the corporate world.
I have the feeling that, especially looking at the corporate world, where you have the potential intrapreneurs who are maybe aspiring to becoming one, but aren't yet sure to make that step, or maybe afraid that they might lose their next career path within their current function, so to climb up, to get promoted. Do you truly believe that only dedication from those people will work in order to lure them to come out?
Yeah, I think this takes me to point 3 and 4. I think we need to create a career path. I would call it serial intrapreneurship, because there's a major message in it, which is, firstly, it is a craft that you can learn. Secondly, most of the things that you do will fail, and that's okay. Just do it again. This will again, if we manage to do that, all those corporates have these talent programs, these talent development programs. But if you look at the role of innovation in these talent development programs, it's maximum a 2-month internship in the lab, or it's a 2-day workshop on design thinking, but it's not really talking about. And it was the same when I studied. Nobody was saying you can become a consultant, you can go to the corporate world, to a management career, or you can become an entrepreneur. And this is what we need to do in corporates. You can become an entrepreneur. It's a career choice. And
that's, of course, a strong message to the corporate side to have that patience in failing, or actually promoting failure to a certain extent.
That patience, yeah. Failure always sucks. I think that is something that an entrepreneur knows, and we don't like to talk about failure, and we don't talk about this. I would say it's just appreciating that you're trying it and that you're learning. And in the end, if we get to a point, some of the projects out of those programs will hit a point where you say, okay, from a strategical perspective, it is best to spin this off. And if that happens, if you do so, I think it is worth to talk about phantom shares or revenue shares or whatever. But I think, again, people talk about this too early, because why should I care about my incentives when I know that most probably this idea that I have will fail? So we need to talk about incentives, but only when we create the project setting for scaling. And this is way later.
So if I'm thinking along the line with you, which I do agree on a lot of levels, is that for you, maybe a good incentivization could be, for instance, saying, okay, if you step into the Intrapreneur program, we can dedicate you to this position for a year, maybe 2 years, so at least you have the time to get involved in several programs, to at least have that learning experience, and then we can evaluate at the end if you're actually a good entrepreneur, if not, maybe a manager.
You can, and that's very, very, that's maybe the 5th point, and you can learn with externals. And I think that is very important. So I think it's a great personal development to dedicate weeks to something knowing that it will fail. Building a fantastic landing page, again, knowing that most probably nobody will hit the button, but still you have to try it. You need to. That was the toughest learning for myself, was that it is possible to aspire big, and on the other side walk humbly. And if you then manage to stay curious, you are on a good road. As an entrepreneur, intrapreneur, whatever, I would say in the end, incentivization is important, but not in the phases that we're looking at, not in the incubation phases.
All right, then I guess that's already a good answer to Peter de Wolf's question. I hope he enjoys, or at least can benefit from your answer. But then again, I have the last question to you, because this is about the time for us to round it up. Is do you actually have maybe an urgent question, something that still bothers you day and night, where you would really like to get an answer to? Our next intrapreneur is going to be Niels Nimmergeers. from Belfius. So he works in the studio, a separate company that is also a venture builder acceleration program, or a company itself. And he's one of the strong disruptive intrapreneurs there. So is there any urgent question that you also would like to ask him?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I would love to get to the ground of what. This sounds like an easy one first, but why do we need intrapreneurship? And really asking it, do we really need intrapreneurship? Isn't it enough to say, here's entrepreneurship, here are the established organizations, and whatever horse wins, we buy them? I would say that every really experienced entrepreneur knows that the probability of failure if you start something new from scratch is too high to do it. From a risk management perspective, for one person, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. I think there is in the core of that is something of why intrapreneurship is such a big chance. And if you say, yeah, we want intrapreneurship, not only corporate VC and relations with startups, how to prioritize it. So is it just part of the ecosystem as is VC and working with startups? Is it more important? Is it less important?
Okay, so first of all, it's a twofold question. Do you need intrapreneurship in general? Can it not simply be a corporate acquiring startups? And secondly of all, if so, where does it come within the prioritization versus acquisitions versus incremental projects, etc.?
Yeah, right. Because I think that we are, of course, all of us are biased by intrapreneurship. That is fantastic. It's a lot of fun, and we will build disruptive radical innovation here. And I have a dedicated opinion towards that. But I don't want to bias the next one.
That's no problem. I think you're gonna find his answer very interesting, because I know he's also an entrepreneur by heart. He started out as an entrepreneur and is actually still an entrepreneur on the side. So I think he will definitely be a good peer to answer you on that, not from a biased perspective.
That's good.
Well, I'll keep you posted on that in 2 weeks from now. Then we'll have our answer. So in this case, Christopher, I want to thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us on the show. You are also the first international intrapreneur, or entrepreneur in this case, that we're talking to, so the first digital person. Yet that doesn't leave out the open invitation for a beer in Belgium. Always welcome, of course.
I have it on the list.
Then I can only imagine that you as a German would appreciate a good beer. So
yes, I know that you guys know what you're doing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Hope to see you around in 2 weeks from now, where we'll be here with Mr. Nimmigeers from the studio Belfius. And then we'll take over on the next topics. We'll be launching new episodes every 2 weeks on Monday from now. So check out our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, put it in your agenda. Check out Intrapreneur Stories on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure to leave your questions for the intrapreneurs in the comment section below. We're looking forward to answering them and looking forward to seeing you again. Take care.